Hey Science 8s, it's Manchak here with your video lesson for Concept E2. Before I go any further, I'm just going to let you know that this video lesson will follow the same format as Concept E1. So I'm going to give a brief introduction to what's going to be covered in this concept, and I'll draw your attention to the videos that I've set aside to help you with your learning on this. And then you guys will go on to do a practice quiz and a summative quiz, both of which will be open book. The reason why I am continuing this is that I'm actually recording this the week before it's to be put forward for you guys, that you're going to be working on it. And so what that means is I haven't got feedback from you on how things work back in Concept E1 yet. So we are going to just move forward in the same format I introduced last week, and we'll go from there. And then what'll happen is if your feedback is overly negative or not good, then I'll switch back to what I was doing for concepts E3, E4, and E5. Okay, so I hope that works for you. So remember, at this point, we're going to continue on with E2, and we'll see how things go from there. The way I worked it last week, if you guys recall, is you are going to watch this video to start with. It'll introduce very briefly what is going to be going on for this concept and the ideas we're going to cover. Then if you'd like, after that introduction, you can hit pause and I'll tell you when to do that, and go and watch the videos that I've set aside for you guys to watch for this that are going to touch on the concepts I want you to get from this. And then after you've gone and watched the videos, I'm going to just run through your notes and just show you the parts that I think are most important. Okay, so that's how it's going to work. So I'm going to slide this over here. And oh yeah, did you like my little pun here? I'll meet you. It's I'm foreshadowing onto what's going to happen for the concept later on. So this concept is called linking landforms, water, and climate. And really, what we're going to be talking about in this concept, that was hard, is how water affects the land, basically, and the different ways that water affects the land and what goes on in the land. So we're going to be talking about various things, and I'll show you this on here. So we are in concept E2 right now. So we're going to be able to describe the processes of erosion and deposition resulting from wave action and water flow. We're going to investigate stream characteristics. We'll describe the processes leading to the development of ocean basins and continental drainage systems. We'll identify the evidence of glacial action and what glaciers are all about. And then we'll describe the motion and movement of ocean currents and its impact on climate. So that's the stuff we're really going to be covering. What I've laid out for you here is a series of videos all linked together in this playlist, and I'll actually add this video to the beginning of the playlist as well. And there are videos, I think I did the totals, and we're about in the neighborhood of 16, 17, about 24 minutes of videos to watch, and you can just hit play on the playlist and hammer your way through them. Once you're done watching those videos, pop back to this one, and I'm going to bring over the notes at some point here, and we'll just quickly go through the notes and talk about the points that I think are most important. Remember, your quiz, your practice quiz, and your summative quiz will be based off the notes, and these videos are meant to sort of drive home the points, the kinds of things that I would talk about if we were doing this face-to-face. When you get done the videos and you've gone through the last section of this video to explore the notes, then you've got some questions you can do out of the textbook. If that seems a little bit daunting, that's fine. I would ask you then to focus on concept E2 in worksheet number 1 and work your way through that. Once you've done all of that and you feel confident, move on to the practice quiz. Once you've received my feedback on the practice quiz and I've said you're good to go, then you can move on to doing the summative quiz. Okay, so I think with that said, if you guys would like to hit pause right now and watch these 24 minutes of videos, by all means do so, and hit pause now. Okay, and then if you stuck around or you finished that, I'm going to just quickly run through the notes with you and what I think are the most key points that I want you guys to pull out of this. So this is what your notes look like. You should have had them in front of you while you were watching the videos, maybe even filling in little bits and pieces. If you need to circle back to the videos to get a bit more information, that's fine too. So like I said, this whole concept really is about how does water affect the earth? How does it affect the landscapes that we have around? And what we've worked our way through in this, and will work our way through, is the different ways that water impacts land, whether it's fresh water or salt water, because that's what our unit is all about. So as you move through here, start to think a little bit, are we talking about fresh water? Are we talking about salt water? And how does that work? So the first thing I want you guys to focus in on are waves and tides. I want you to understand what a wave is and what a tide is. And being in Alberta, we don't know a lot about tides. If you've been to a big lake in Alberta, you've learned a little bit about waves. But tides, we're not really affected by tides at all here. And if you haven't spent much time by the ocean, you may not be aware of them. So definitely figure out what tides are. Understand what a wave is and what causes waves. Okay, that's going to be important to me. What is a wave, and what is that structure that goes through? And if you guys recall, we did talk about waves when we did our electromagnetic radiation section in Unit C, right near the end of Unit C. This is a little bit different. We're talking about water waves, but they still move in the same way, just like sound waves and light waves, and all of those things move in similar ways. Understand what causes them. Okay, most waves are caused by wind, but there are other things that cause waves, and I want you guys to pay attention to them. And then these words, erosion and deposition, we start talking about them here, but we get into them in more detail a little further down in the notes. Okay, then we move on to talking about tides, and I would like you guys to have a general idea of what causes tides to happen on Earth. And this interaction between the Earth and the Moon is super important. And one of the videos that I've linked in the playlist, if you watched it already, talked a little bit about how that works. And if it still doesn't make sense, run back through the video again, or pop me a question at some point. These waves and tides will also cause erosion and deposition along the shores of our oceans, and if we've got a larger lake, definitely along the shores of our lakes. Erosion and deposition are important concepts when we talk about how we describe what water does to our landscape. And so please understand what they are and what they do. So one way that we talk about erosion and deposition is talking about what goes on with a stream. And a stream goes through from where it starts, particularly in Alberta, in the mountains, to where it ends up in the ocean. It goes through a series of changes as it goes from the mountains all the way down to the ocean. And so that's what this section is describing. And there was also a video in this concept where why do rivers curve, as well as the weathering and erosion, talk both about how those streams change as time goes by. And as time goes by, and as they move from mountains down to the prairies and then ultimately to the ocean, the characteristics change. And you can see the width of them changes, the depth of them changes, the velocity changes, the gradient changes. Gradient is how deeply sloped it is. All of this leads to different levels of erosion and deposition. Okay, understand, please, what erosion and deposition are and how they can change the landscape. Okay, and erosion happens through liquid water, but we'll see it a little bit later. It also happens through solid water. Okay, so spend the time understanding what we mean by erosion and deposition, and how a stream is a good example of the different ways erosion and deposition occur. We talked about watersheds before. Okay, and so this is a good point to bring up what's called the continental divide and what it is all about, and how that divides very large watersheds between very western part of North America and the more eastern part of North America. We're on the eastern side of the continental divide. In grade 7, you guys talked about the theory of plate tectonics, so it might be a good idea to just maybe think about that again. I didn't include a video, but what we're really talking about is this plate tectonics creates continental systems and drainage systems, because what it ends up doing is shoots up mountains or creates big trenches in the ocean, and that changes how water flows and moves on the surface of the earth. So give that a read through when you get a chance. We're mentioning the continental drainage systems here, but what I really wanted to draw your attention to is glaciers. Glaciers are hugely important for us here in Alberta, and they have shaped our landscape in a significant way all across the prairies. And usually I would get into in the classroom a big discussion about what this area looked like, 10,000, 20,000 years ago during our last ice age, the fact that we were covered in a glacier. For now, I want you guys to understand that most of our glaciers are found either up in the Arctic or in the Antarctic or up in our mountains, and they're areas of ice that sort of grow and shrink as the year goes by. And what we've been noticing is as climate change has taken a hold of our world, these glaciers are actually generally shrinking. They're not really adding on to themselves in any significant way over the course of a year and as years go by. This is a really interesting diagram of what might be left over after a glacier has moved through an area. I would like you guys to at least be relatively familiar with, not familiar, but recognize that if I talk about a kettle lake, or a moraine or an esker, something along those lines, that's related to the stuff that a glacier leaves behind, the landforms that a glacier leaves behind when it goes through an area. The last bit of this concept, and it's a bit of a long concept, so I apologize for that, but we'll balance short and long concepts as we go through. The last one is to talk a little bit higher thinking stuff about how water affects climate and what goes on with that. So I really wanted you guys to hone in on what the definition of climate is. Climate is the average weather measured over a long period of time. So climate is measured, I like to think of it in tens of years, not from today to tomorrow. That's what people do often, and it drives me nuts. They'll go outside and it'll be a cold day, and then, a minus 35 day, and they'll go, oh yeah, that global warming thing's not happening. Yeah, but that's not climate, that's weather. Okay, climate is the average weather as we measure it over the course of a long period of time, in tens of years is what we're talking about there. So read a little bit here on climate, and then there's a video I linked on currents and climate and how the ocean affects the climate and all these little ocean currents that go on and what they do to change the climate around the earth. So please make sure you try to get at least a general understanding of how these bits and pieces work. That is the highlights, the most key ideas from your notes for this concept E2. If anything is giving you a bit of a headache, please fire me an email, reach out to me during an office hour, and we can chat a little bit about getting that sorted out in your brain. Remember that you guys have some practice questions out of the textbook if you'd like to do them, but for sure, go ahead and do the rest of worksheet 1, which you started last week. So finish it off and get that last little bit done on that section related to concept E2. Once you're done that and you feel comfortable, move on to the practice quiz. Remember, the quizzes are now open book for this concept, so have your notes handy, maybe have your textbook handy, and then tackle answering the questions. If I would ask you to not use any other resources. Please don't go on the internet and go looking up stuff, and certainly don't go and copy answers directly off of somebody else's work on the internet, because that's plagiarism and you're going to get in trouble for that. Okay, so once you're done all of that, then you're done concept E2, and we only have 3 more concepts after this left to wrap up the year and be done with the year. So as always, guys, if you have any questions, please track me down. I get bored and lonely sitting in front of my computer by myself all the time. So please, pop in for an office hour, arrange a time if you need to chat with me, and we can do that. But other than that, I hope you guys are staying healthy, getting outside and enjoying the lovely weather. Although we're probably looking for, we had some rain last week, and I'm writing, never mind. It's going to get complicated, weird space-time kind of thing going on here. Anyway, stay safe. Take care of each other, and we will talk soon when we get to concept E3.